You in the UK have targeted completion of the equivalence assessments by the end of June 2020. And financial services expected to be a priority area of negotiation. And it's failed so far. So you're giving us an idea of what the outcome will be. How does that leave finance? Because you can't very well turn around and say half of finance can be equivalent and half of finance can't.
Well, the equivalence determinations relate to different areas of markets. So you might say, okay, EU 27 entities can have access to UK CCPs, but they can't have access to UK equity venues. So I actually think that, or you can do a different determination on data. So I think there will be a deal, but I think equivalence will be selective because I think politically, and I completely get the EU position on this, they can't be seen to be giving full access on financial services to the UK. It's a bit like the UK saying that the EU will have unchained access into UK fishing waters. That's just politically not going to be acceptable. So I think there's going to be a subset of equivalence determinations, but I think a deal will be done.
But the M&A is going to be quite interesting, though, because the one thing that we've had in recent times is obviously the collision with antitrust that's taken place. And I mean, Deutsche Börse and London Stock Exchange Group seem to have had a remarkable ability to find antitrust in almost anything that they wanted to do most of the time. What can really be done that manages to get round that antitrust?
Well, and if we're talking Paris, and I should take off my Argentina cap, in deference to Chicago, I'm going to pop on my Chicago Bulls three-peat cap, which follow basketball will know this is a very historic cap from the Chicago Bulls, three-time NBA. So, yeah, I think that antitrust, as we know, I don't see any issue. It is truly sort of economic competition that's analysed at one level, but I think, again, because of nationalisation of economic interests, I see politics as being a big driver for antitrust. I think the idea that CME able to internalise the entire US Treasury, cash and derivatives markets and data or whatever, as long as the US Treasury is okay with that, then they were able to do that. So I think the challenges are political as much as they're economic. And that's potentially what we're going to see with LSE Group and prospective bidders for Borsa Italiana and MTF, because you've got the history of the previous determinations, but fundamentally it is about, I think, the ownership of EU 27 assets. And I completely understand that Vestager and the Commission and the EU would really care about the ownership of those assets. But it is interesting, isn't it, with the number of bidders? And if you like, the different profile of the bidders.
So what Alex is asking is, will the Italians actually allow the Swiss to be the buyers? Because, of course, the Swiss are not in the EU 27. It seems as if it might not fit the political narrative.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point. I'd also add to, I think it's absolutely right, Alex. I'd also add to it that it's sort of made more sensitive given the SIX acquisition of BME, because you've then got Spanish and Italian assets inside the EU 27. It's not like the CCPs are fundamentally clearing very different product sets. So I would imagine you'd want to see some sort of integration of the CCPs. Is that something that both Spain and Italy would go for? So I agree with you. I don't think it does fit the political narrative, but it's not easy to bid against the Swiss, is it? Because you don't really know what you're bidding against in terms of its, as a non-listed, as a private company, you don't know what you're bidding against in terms of their balance sheets and all that kind of stuff. So it is much, much harder. And I guess you could also present a narrative which is the Swiss wanting to deal with the issues they have with the EU in terms of access. We had a really good presentation by a Swiss delegation actually when I was in Brussels, talking about the nature of their sort of complex bilateral deals. And actually the Swiss were saying, in a sense, they would like actually to sort of simplify that. So I think at one level, it complicates the political narrative, but it may provide an opportunity, if the Swiss present it cleverly, for the Swiss and the EU to resolve some of the impasse they have about respective market access.